The reason that this bill was created is to put power in the hands of people, but what we're saying is that it's not going to put power in the hands of people because, one, it's not the people who get to choose who gets to redistrict.
Recognizing that things are more complex than they at first appear is what I look for when in both the design of projects and as well as how the students are working through a challenge. Project-based learning, I think, completes critical thinking to its next stage, which is, okay, well, now that I've taken this thing apart and along the way perhaps notice some of its flaws, in the process of putting things back together or putting them back together in a way that was different than they were before, I'm now in solution mode, creation mode.
I can't bring my daughter to school.
One of the key dimensions of problem solving is just persistence, which is something that a lot of teenagers don't have the patience for. Failure is going to occur because that's something that we don't let enough kids fail. But then the possibility to fix or to redeem. That's why I think good project-based learning has got that sort of large-scale, multi-month, multidisciplinary design to it. You know the students are going to stumble at certain points or hit a roadblock, and by having that really sort of authentic goal at the end, it really motivates the students to kind of bang their heads against the wall a little bit more until they figure it out. One of the things that I want students to, when they think of creativity, innovation, is to expand that sense of the word beyond their first connotations, which is arts classes is where you're creative. English and science and history, those aren't creative endeavors. I think society often has that kind of notion about creativity. I think that the people that really drive our economy, however, realize that creativity is inextricably intertwined with problem solving. That this century is about identifying problems, and that the only way you come up with a solution is to be creative. When those young men, when they started realizing that women were their target voter and that they were going to have to do some thinking around how to make their argument to those women, and I think the creative stage actually started there.
Focus less on the actual car, but on the price of gas, because that's going to be more emotionally effective.
It depends with car.
I mean, if you're driving like an SUV or something.
You're driving a hybrid though.
Then it's probably like 84.
Oftentimes collaboration is an extracurricular. Students go out to the sports field, or they go into the theater, or they go join the jazz band, and that's when they actually have to engage in teamwork. And the message to them is collaboration is an extracurricular activity in the world. Working with other human beings is the reality of the world that these students are entering. And first and foremost, project-based learning is about revising that. You know, Luis doesn't have a computer at home, and some of the other students did. So of course he's at a disadvantage when it comes time to start playing with iMovie. But whoever was at the computer, his chin was on their shoulder. You know, he was always watching, engaged, adding his feedback, and it was appreciated. And people really mentioned at the end that Luis's ideas were a positive thread through the whole project. And it really boosted Luis's sense of himself and what he could contribute, and his academic identity, and his sense of himself as an intellectual. The students were immediately noticed that sometimes the pro and con argument in the official state information guide would have facts that directly contradicted each other on the two sides. And there was nothing in the voter information guide that gave the voter the tools to reconcile that. So I love that the students noticed that early and realized that they needed to go out into the world and figure out how to reconcile that factual contradiction.
Hold on. See what's in French food.
The main thing that the students need to learn and become accustomed to, just second nature thinking about, is where is this coming from? And it's amazing how the students live on the internet. Because they're young and often just don't have a lot of experience with this, they don't see the contours that I think a more sophisticated critical thinker sees. We were living and breathing media literacy from the very first moment we kicked off this project. We looked at an Eisenhower campaign commercial and we were analyzing the message to remind the students that the analytical skills that you're learning in school don't live in some vacuum separate from your sort of daily media-rich life. I love when technology is so imbued in the project itself, the technology almost disappears in a way that I think is authentic. Oftentimes schools treat technology as this separate thing, and you do it with your computer teacher, and it happens in the computer lab. It's seen as this separate entity, but it's not how the technology is working in the 21st century. And so I love the fact that they're expected to kind of figure things out as they go, and that an English teacher or a government teacher is using this in a way and expecting them to use technology in a way that is a means to an end.
So I know that you guys obviously have to make this a little bit more interesting because I think a lot of people just don't know what it's about. So Sam, do you want to take charge of 2 of these?
So often the only way to teach something is to have a living example of it. There's a certain flexibility I see in Andrew that gives him this ability to not sort of rub people the wrong way emotionally, but still have an honest intellectual disagreement. His political views differ from just about everybody here. He's able to not back down from his positions. He speaks up, but in a way that's always so respectful that the students listen and forces them to really think about and defend some of their own positions. One of the major things we're working to build in our students in these projects is that the teacher is increasingly invisible to the process. We are depending on those moments on student initiative. We're depending upon the students not waiting to be told what to do next, but I'm often hoping students move on to the next stage even before I get to work with that group individually. So when I sit down with a group, it's not, what are you going to do next? I know it's working well when I sit down and say, what have you guys done? It's something that can be taught. And if we just sort of hope that people figure that out on their own in life, we're not reaching the potential of what we can accomplish in an educational setting. It helps a lot when you've got a diverse class, and I'm fortunate to work in a place where the raw material, so to speak, is rich and for cross-cultural communication and understanding. The Prop 1A group, they really realized that the collaborative process from the beginning was going to be something that served them and didn't hamper them. And I would add to that the fact that that was a diverse group of individuals only accentuated that possibility. So often when we speak about diversity, it's only skin deep. There was also, I think, a rich diversity of thinking in that group that was an important thing for their success. One of the things that makes teachers nervous about group work, justifiably, is what we call the piggybacking effect. Students who are lazier, realizing that they can piggyback on the more motivated or conscientious students and end up being part of a high-quality product without having necessarily done their fair share of effort, or I think more importantly, not having done their fair share of learning. What's important for teachers is that they keep abreast enough of what's happening in the groups. That's why when I circulate the room, when I sit down to talk to a group, I can't see that group as a whole. I have to see it for its parts and get really good at assessing, are there some slackers in here? Are there some people that are writing? And I gotta intervene when I see that happens. Secondly, assessment. At the end of the process, you can't just give every member of the group the same grade based on the final output. That is being unfair to students who didn't work very hard and students who did. So there's different tricks of the trade, doing some reflection process at the end, having the group self-assess at different points during the project, and also just keeping your eyes open and your ears open. Our 21st century skills, we actually call them our leadership skills, because we believe that all of these things, the critical thinking, the creativity, the collaboration, that the sum of all these is that if you walk out of a high school being skilled in these habits of mind, these social and intellectual skills, you're going to end up emerging as the leader. You're going to get plunked down somewhere, and compared to the people around you that haven't been coached and trained in these things, you're gonna rise and be the one that people look to get everybody organized, have a direction, set up the channels of communication, prod the creativity of approach, not give up when things get hard. That's what leaders do.